In 2022, the Ukrainian army conducted 49 artillery and drone-launched attacks on the facilities of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, ZNPP. The strikes targeted nuclear reactors, new and spent nuclear fuel storage facilities, and other critical infrastructure. Following these attacks, the station was left without an external power supply 5 times, which posed a real threat of a man-made disaster. The shelling of the plant by the Ukrainian armed forces was initially of little concern to the international community, as specialists from Cambridge University concluded that the risk of radiation contamination was minimal. However, our specialists' forecast of the development of radiation, which was later confirmed by the relevant European organizations, showed that the release of radioactive substances in the event of an accident would affect virtually the whole of Europe. Only after that, as well as after IAEA experts were stationed at the plant, the shelling almost ceased. To date, however, the attacks on the industrial site and the satellite town of Energodar, where the plant's staff live, have continued. The Security Service of Ukraine carries out sabotage and terrorist activities, including against officials and ZNPP employees. I would like to point out that the shelling of critical infrastructure could have irreversible consequences comparable to those of the Chernobyl and Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plants. In 1986, one day after the accident at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, Sweden's radiation monitoring equipment, located more than 1,000 kilometers away, detected a 10-fold increase in background radiation levels. As a result of the Chernobyl disaster, more than 20,000 square kilometers of territory in 17 European countries were contaminated with radioactive materials. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that one of the priorities of the AFU's invasion of the Kursk region was to seize the Kursk nuclear power plant. The Russian Defense Ministry has obtained a report from the State Emergency Service of Ukraine, which was taken into account in the planning of the operation. According to this report, only the Russian Federation will be exposed to radioactive contamination in the event of an accident. Quote, "The Kursk nuclear power plant is subject to southerly winds that carry emissions north of the territory of the Russian Federation in the first and next 12 hours. In Ukraine, there will be no change in background gamma radiation levels," unquote. However, it is more likely that things could have turned out in a very different way. Given the various factors involved, a major accident would spread radioactive materials over a large part of Europe, as happened at the Chernobyl plant. Ukraine's attempts at nuclear blackmail raise more serious concerns. For example, in a meeting with U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump in October 2024, the head of the Kyiv regime, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, issued an ultimatum demanding accelerated NATO membership or authorization to possess nuclear weapons. At the Munich Security Conference in February 2022, he had already announced his intention to restore Ukraine's nuclear status. The special military operation prevented the Ukrainian side from pursuing its own nuclear program. The key performers are the Kharkov Institute of Physics and Technology, the scientists of which participated in the USSR nuclear program, and the Institute for Nuclear Research of the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine in Kyiv. Since 2021, there has been a significant increase in funding for these institutions and a 20-fold increase in total procurement. Kyiv's efforts to implement its nuclear program are also reflected in this surge in public spending. Despite the current lack of technical capability to develop nuclear weapons, the existing capabilities allow Kyiv to produce a so-called dirty bomb. Spent nuclear fuel, industrial and radioactive calibration sources can be used to make such devices. The report by the Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine to Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal, presented in this slide, is of particular concern. It reports the loss of 68 ionizing radiation sources, including highly active ones, located at the Institute of Metrology in Lipsy, in the Kharkov region. The report states that the loss of control over the ionizing radiation sources is classified as a radiation accident. Ukraine's authorities have been reluctant to give IAEA experts full access to all facilities in the Chernobyl exclusion zone and have delayed submitting detailed reports on the quantity and condition of rad waste. Kyiv refuses to involve the IAEA in accounting for and controlling nuclear materials arriving at the Central Storage Facility for Spent Nuclear Fuel, CSFSF. In this regard, I would like to draw your attention to the training manuals for the Ukrainian Security Service. One area of training is the use of a dirty bomb, such as stealing ionizing, radiation sources, making an explosive device, and detonating it at a mass gathering place. It is difficult to imagine that this kind of interaction between Ukrainian intelligence and the U.S. Defense Threat Reduction Agency, DTRA, falls within the format of security arrangements. According to the information available to the Russian Defense Ministry, the AFU has not abandoned the plans to seize Russian nuclear power plants by force. Having failed to take control of the Kursk nuclear power plant, the enemy has returned to attempts to take control of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. The Korotkoye Zamykanie short-circuit operation plans discovered in October 2024 indicate that. Ukrainian special forces were to be involved in the operation. The goal was to be achieved by deploying HIMARS MLRS and attack drones. Thanks to the proactive actions of Russian units, the takeover plan was not implemented. In 2023, when the Russian Defense Ministry first expressed its concern about Ukraine's creation of a dirty bomb and detonating it to accuse the Russian Federation, Washington's position changed dramatically. At the initiative of the United States, a resolution condemning the use of radiological weapons was introduced and adopted by the UN General Assembly. Given the existing network of international radiation monitoring information systems and the capabilities of IAEA-certified radiochemical laboratories to reliably determine the nature of the destroyed device and its isotopic composition, it is impossible to conduct such an operation covertly. At the same time, since Ukraine uses and stores mainly Russian nuclear fuel, the Kiev regime can resort to provocations against the population of the Russian Federation with the aim of discrediting the state and local authorities.